So how do you hear or how do you see the calling for justice reform and police reform in this case?
I think for me personally, like other people, we hear a lot about justice reform in Thailand, but we still talk about this at the moment. And for this case, hit and run. And in my opinion, I don't think we can see justice reform over the next few years.
No hope at all.
We can say that. Yep.
I see. You know, as an expert in criminology and justice, were you surprised or shocked by the decision of the public prosecutor not to charge Kun.Pol.Lt.Col.Dr.
Yes, I think it shocked me as well, like other Thai people, because he fled away from the scene, maybe 7 or 8 years, right? But just last week, the spokesperson from Royal Thai Police spoke to the public. The public prosecutor adopted this case, and the Royal Thai Police agree with this. Yes. Why? That is a big question. Why? Actually, I think the Royal Thai Police, like the National Police Commissioner, has absolute authority. Disagree with public prosecutor decision. However, I can say we don't exactly know what happened behind the scene.
Yeah, but if you try to walk in the shoes of the police and the public prosecutors and try to understand the reasoning behind the decision, is there something that you think that you can talk about? Is there something that you feel, oh, okay, this is a good enough justification for not pursuing the case?
Actually, like the Office of Attorney General claim, like there have 2 new eyewitnesses and also 1 physics expert from another university just confirm the speed, like a new testimony. Maybe allow the speed would be allowed less than 80 kilometers per hour. On the other hand, at the beginning of this case, 1 physics expert from Chulalongkorn University gave testimony to the police officer. The speed would be allowed 177 kilometers.
Big difference.
Yes,
A big
100
difference between
it's big
70
difference.
kilometers an hour and 170.
Of course,
kilometers an
obviously,
hour.
yes. And all of these would be key evidences. That's why the public prosecutor just stopped this case.
And it seems right now they are like calling for revival of the cases. How do you think it would be probable?
I think it would be like that, but I think we still have some difficulty in criminal justice system. I can give 1 concrete example. According to the research done by 1 researcher in foreign country, it showed that there have a connection between the rich business guy, senior officer, and politician in Thailand. All of these key factors affected in inequality of the criminal justice system. Yes. So that is why sometimes we can see the rich have the power in criminal justice system.
Yeah, so that raised the questions of impunity on the rich in Thailand.
Yes, someone said it shows Thailand's culture of impunity.
And that's why this phrase, prisons are only for the poor, has been so popular in the past few weeks.
Yes, that's why we have to discuss about this again and again.
So let's come back to these 2 key witnesses, one of whom has just died, right?
Yes.
In an accident in Chiang Mai. So the testimonies given by these 2 key witnesses were crucial in making the public prosecutors not to charge Kun.Pol.Lt.Col.Dr. right? But is it something usual or unusual that someone comes forward as a witness 8 years, 6 years, or 8 years after what the accident. In this case, it's almost 6 years after the accident, right? So in criminology, is it something that unusual or something that acceptable?
I think it's not common for criminal case like this. Why new witnesses just appear after 6 or 7 years ago. Actually, they would go to the police station and tell the police what happened.
Yeah, soon after what happened, right?
Yeah, exactly. But however, they just show themselves after 6 or 7 years ago. Again, it's uncommon.
It's even more controversial when one key witnesses just die so suddenly last
Yes,
week.
it shocked me like other people too. Why he just died before he has to give us some testimony to maybe the House of Committee. It's quite strange. However, I think Prime Minister just ordered to local police station there just investigate this case seriously. We will see what happens next.
So there are now some parallel investigations and inquiries into why the case was stopped. So do you personally expect any positive results from these inquiries or investigations? Anything concrete would come out of this and clear our doubts that are still in public's mind?
So you mean the for hit and run case?
Yeah, hit and run case, yeah.
Actually, as we know, the government just set up like an independent committee headed by Professor Visha Mahakun to look at this case. And also, the Royal Thai Police appointed some senior officer to look into this case again. And like the Office of Attorney General, they set up the committee too.
Now at least three investigations into the case now.
Yes.
So do you expect any positive results from these?
As I heard a little bit investigation from some senior officer last weekend, they said like they just confirm hit and run case would be dropped. Yes. And however, I'm looking forward for the result of the committee headed by Professor Visha Mahakun.
Yes. So that's the only inquiry committee that we can really pin our hope on, right?
I think Thai people in general is looking forward for the outcome of the investigation too.
Even though you say that we do not have much hope for justice reform or police reform because we have been calling for this for quite a while, but what can we learn from hit and run case?
Of course, firstly, I think it showed what this guy, boss or Rayut, why he has very wrong authority has opportunity to run away from the scene, maybe 5 or 6 years. What happened with criminal justice process? Actually, the police should pursue him. Yes, they did immediately. And after that, it takes much time. Maybe the police spent 5 years for asking the court to issue the arrest warrant. And that's why he could run away from Thailand. He could fly to the UK and other countries. Secondly, the lesson needs to be learned, not only for the officer in criminal justice system, but for the other officer in government agency. They should do on the basis of public interest, not for their own benefit. Otherwise, it will put pressure, very much pressure on the government, like this case. And also it sparked public outrage at the end. And I think for this case, it seemed like it would call more and more people on the streets just to demand for justice.
No, in the best case scenario, what do you think the result of the inquiry by Kun Vicha Mahakun's committee should be?
Actually, the Prime Minister just give the authority to Professor Vicha just to look into this case carefully again. But at the end, the decision will be made by the government, not by Professor Vicha Mahakun. So it seems like just academic result. Yes. So yeah. In other words, Professor Vicha Mahakun does not have the authority, the power, just to punish bad officer or bad apples. Yes.
It's more of a fact-finding mission than real inquiry into finding fault with people, right?
Yes, yes, yeah, that's right.
It's quite unusually very quiet that the Thai public or even Thai media member do not really know the case until CNN has reported this case about 2 weeks ago. Why do you think it has been very, very quiet?
Actually, it's a good question. It seems to me, I think, what does it mean for white? So if we are talking about this case, yes, it seems to be very quiet. So it means some senior officer, not only the Office of Attorney General or the Thai police, try to do something under the carpet. Who knows, yeah? However, now it's not quiet anymore.
But how they should be careful in terms of public backlash against this prosecution and police forces to have kept it so low profile?
It's hard to say. Yes, if they think this case should be put under the carpet, that's it. But the public in general still interested in this case and follow up this case for many, many years. Not only the public, people in Thailand, but I think people in other countries too, like Red Bull is energy drink.
Yeah.
It's worldwide, right?
Yes. Now, if this high-profile case can be swept under the carpet, as you just mentioned, it only means that other incidents involving less prominent figures must have been swept even more under the carpet.
Yes. I think it's hard to say about the decision. Yes. Because so you mean the public prosecutor made the decision,
Yeah.
and it's hard to judge the decision why they made like this. In my opinion, we need to have the independent committee to look at the officer decision in some interesting cases like this.
And who should set up that independent committee?
Of course, the
Prime Minister.
government. Yep. Maybe the independent committee should be composed of the group from different people, like business sector, maybe local authorities, or retired senior officers, or something like this, just to look in some interesting cases when requested.
Yeah. Now, if this committee is able eventually to point out the flaws or the people that could have been held responsible for the wrongdoings in the case, do you think at the end of the day, there is a possibility of the case being revived? Legally speaking, a lot of people believe that since the public prosecutor has closed the case, then it's over now, so nobody can have it revived.
I think the point is we should give them the authority, the power. Maybe call some key evidences to be revised again, or have the authority to call some officer to give some testimony by law.
This case has drawn so much criticism from the Thai public? And from criminology perspective, what could lead to change in terms of the whole process?
Firstly, public prosecutor decision should be inspected by the public. Like I mentioned earlier, it should have an independent committee, independent body when requested. Yes. Secondly, the lesson need to be learned for not only the criminal justice officer, but also for other government agency. Thirdly, public should pay more attention, not only the justice, but the equal right between the rich and the poor. And at the end, we expect this problem, the case like this, should be less and less in Thailand.
Yeah, I agree with you on the point of the public needing to pay more attention to this kind of cases, because I believe that one major reason why the whole case is being sort of revived right now is because of the pressure from the public,
Yep.
thanks to social media especially, right?
Yep.
So you would encourage people to sort of to keep an eye on in the future the criminal cases.
For transparency, yes, and for inspection, not only for our generation, but we just to improve, just to do good thing for the next generation, for better society.
So overall, it's something to do with individual officials who are responsible for the case or the whole system happening in Thailand.
It's a very good question. Actually, I don't want to complain the officer, but I would like to complain the system. Why the police would not have why the loyal Thai police can have the absolute authority to make the decision without any interference. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Actually, like I said in this program earlier last time, actually the National Police Commissioner is under Prime Minister office. So it means politicians can put pressure on the police force by law. So it means we need to discuss seriously about Police Act 2004 just to amend this problem, this article.
This is another very, very big issue, reforming the police,
Yeah.
right?
We still,
And the drafting is still ongoing, the drafting of police reform.
yes, ongoing.
Yeah, so we should really focus on 2004.
Yep. Actually, I think the Police Act 2004 in some article should be amended. Like I said, Prime Minister should not have absolute authority to appoint or dismiss the National Police Commissioner. Otherwise, when the Prime Minister command to the National Police Commissioner, he has to follow what the Prime Minister requested or demanded.
What's the damage that has already occurred to Thailand in this case?
Hit and run case. So I think it shows unfair justice system in Thailand. Secondly, it shows the gap between the rich and the poor lead to a problem between two groups.
Certainly, this is a major issue that the government, especially the Prime Minister, need to address.
Yep.
And using this case as a good example
Yep.
to pursue reforms of the justice system.
Hopefully.